Hey, Jeff from Become More Compelling here, and welcome to another episode of Compelling Convos. What we're going to talk about today, I am super excited about it, and I think you will be too as we get into it. So we're going to talk about the importance of intent in social interaction. So we've all gone onto that Zoom meeting or been in that job interview or been meeting this new person, and it's natural for us to sometimes think about all the things that could go wrong and the things that could screw us up. And that really doesn't do us any favors socially. So we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use to have better social outcomes. So after getting thousands of messages from people who want to improve their social and people skills, I can tell you about 80% of people, they focus on what they want to avoid. So they want to avoid being boring. They want to avoid screwing up that job interview. They want to avoid that conversation kind of dying and fizzling out. They say these things to me, and what I think is interesting is it's natural to put a lot of importance on negative outcomes, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it's also really important to think about what could go right and what intent you want to go into a social interaction with. So being proactive. About negativity, so it's only natural for people to think, oh, I want to avoid this outcome. I want to avoid messing things up. That's extremely human and extremely natural. So there's this thing called the negativity bias. And if you've never heard of it, what it is human beings place a large amount of importance on negative outcomes because we want to avoid negative outcomes. So a lot of good thinking on this comes from Rick Hansen, PhD, and he's written a lot on the negativity bias that is really absolutely worth a read. And some things that he says is like your caveman great grandparent, when they heard a rustling in the bushes, there's a chance it could have been a saber-toothed tiger and it could literally kill them. So it makes a lot of sense that they would want to avoid negative outcomes. And as we evolved as a species and now we're kind of all in cities for the most part, that rustling in the bushes, it's probably the neighborhood cat and it's probably not a saber-toothed tiger. When it comes to social interactions, thinking about negative stuff and keying in on what could possibly go wrong, that really is not going to put us in a position to perform well. What I do before every social interaction could be a Zoom meeting, it could be getting drinks with a new friend, whatever it happens to be, I'm going to think about what could go right. So I'm going to think about the best case scenario instead of the worst case scenario, because that's going to put me in a really solid frame of mind to bring my best self to that social interaction. If I spent all my time thinking about what I want to avoid or what negative things could happen, that's really going to mess me up hard for that social interaction. Some things that could go right. So you could ace that job interview. You could meet that new person and have a great first impression and end up telling some great stories and making a new friend. You could instead of being boring, maybe you tell some engaging, entertaining stories from your last vacation and people end up really liking that. So there's a lot that can go right in any given social interaction. And the more you work on your people skills and the more, if you've been watching these compelling convos, the more tips you learn and the more tips you implement, you have a lot of stuff and skills at your disposal that you can constantly learn and improve on. Another thing that I really like a lot, and I got this from Olivia Fox's book, The Crispin Myth, I believe, and I really like this because what intent, what do you want to leave people feeling when you leave that social interaction? So maybe you're at a networking event. Well, you might want to just go there to connect with people, so you want people to feel heard and you want to be a good listener. Maybe that's your intent heading into that social situation. Maybe you're jumping on a Zoom call that's a job interview, so you want to leave that person feeling like you're competent, like you ask a lot of good questions and that you were a good listener and that you were a good candidate for the job. So we all have different intent that we have going into a social situation. We want to make sure that intent is positive and just kind of thoughtful. So next social interaction that you're going into, your action steps, think about what intent you have going into that social situation. You want that intent to be positive, and depending on the social situation, maybe you want to be thoughtful, maybe you want to be funny, maybe you want to just be a good listener, maybe you want to be authoritative, like if you're giving a presentation to a group, could be a mix of those things too. So think about your intent, because we have a lot of control over how we perform socially. And a big part of taking that control is just being really thoughtful and having some thought out intent in heading into those social interactions, instead of just letting our negativity bias mind say, oh, I don't want to mess up. Oh, I don't want to bore people. Oh, I don't want the conversation to fizzle out. Instead of letting that rule us, let's actually rule ourselves and say, okay, here's what I want heading into this interaction, and I'm going to think of all the things that could possibly go right in this interaction. So that's my action step for you. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you'd like me to get to on a future episode, you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter at @TheJeffCallahan with 2 L's, or you can send me an email at jeff@becomemorecompelling.com, or just drop a comment below, and then I'll record a episode with the answer to your topic suggestion or your question. That's it for today. Talk soon. Hey, a couple of quick things before you leave. One, I've got a subscribe button over here. If you like this video and you don't want to miss out on a future video, hit that subscribe button. 2, if you like this video, hit the like button. That helps other awesome people like you find it. And 3, leave a comment if you have any feedback for me, or if you have a topic or suggestion that you want me to cover in a future video. Thanks.